friends, and welcome back to your Daily Detroit. It is Friday, November 25th, 2022. We have made it through Thanksgiving. I'm still feeling thankful. I'm Jer Stays, and also I think feeling thankful is Mr. Devon O'Reilly. How are you, sir?
You know, Jer, I am just thankful for every day because I'm just living the dream. Whether it feels like it at the time or not.
Well, it is a good reminder that Detroit is the place to be. Normally, we would share where we've been, but honestly, you know where almost all of us have been in some form or another? Doing the Thanksgiving thing. So I figured, in recap, we'd talk about what our favorite sides are, because I think you and I have some different thoughts on that. Because I think a lot of people will pick potatoes, or they'll pick, or maybe an au gratin or something like an au gratin potato. But what's your favorite side?
Well, Jer, on a basic level, I will always load up on the mac and cheese. I just, I'm a sucker for mac and cheese. So that's like the basic part, but people don't want to hear that. My off the beaten path, I'm really interested. You always kind of shout out the feedback. I would love listener feedback on who has had green Jell-O. And I'm not talking about like green colored Jell-O. I'm talking about when I was younger, growing up, we had a thing called green Jell-O, and somebody in the family would always bring it. And it was this amalgamation of cream cheese, Cool Whip, lime gelatin, pineapple. Honestly, Jared, I've never made it myself, so I don't even know what all was in it. But it was just this delightful combination of things that we just referred to as green Jell-O, and it came in like the circular mold. That was by far my favorite, and we just don't get together like we used to, so there's no one to bring the green Jell-O. But I'm really thinking about reviving it next year for my in-laws to be the green Jell-O advocate here, because I loved it. Have you ever had it before?
It's been years. My grandmother used to do it. My grandmother was a big fan of these sorts of things because you could make it and it'd be ready to go. I remember, I think hers had cottage cheese in it. I want to say.
Jared, you can't really tell what's in it. It's a lime green color, and there's all sorts of delicious, sweet, savory, salty things in it. It's a mess, but man, it tastes good.
Are we bringing back that era of cooking? Is that a real thing?
I would love to, Jared. I would love to bring back that era of cooking and that era of desserts.
The Daily Detroit Jell-O salad party.
Oh, yeah. Oh, count me in, man. I was just thinking about just having a little nostalgia. Do you remember in restaurants when they used to have like the little rotating dessert thing? Dessert cooler. It was like the little showcase of desserts, and there was all sorts of like Jell-Os with whipped cream on them, assorted puddings. Who's pudding anymore? What even is pudding? Yeah,
pie slices.
Pie slices.
I was always looking for the apple pie slice, and if they got the good crust.
Yes. They had everything from cakes. A bygone era, seriously, where restaurants would literally, I feel like COVID just, killed any semblance of that, but like the era of the rotating circular dessert case, kind of like a showroom there.
Do you know where I remember the showroom desserts? I used to go to Flaming Embers with my mom, and Flaming Embers was that iconic restaurant. It was almost cafeteria style, where you went down the rail and you picked up everything or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a certain taste to burgers that sometimes I make that's more garlicky and crisper, if you will. Maybe a little overdone, but I always loved Flaming Embers with my mom, and that had the rotating dessert case as well.
Yes. Let's revive that. I don't know if we can, but I would love to get, one day Jared will get a rotating dessert case for the studio or something. We can offer it to guests. That would be pretty cool, huh?
That would be amazing. Although I'm not sure if Engineer Randy is going to send me a note secretly in love with these things, or his resignation note.
I hope it's the former.
Right? Or maybe he can go ahead and do some work on it. I would love to see him touch one of these like Jell-O salads and make it tasty.
I think it's a great idea. So, Jared, in your estimation, what would you put in the proverbial rotating case of Thanksgiving when we're talking about sides? Dessert or otherwise?
So for me, it's two-pronged. One, I make a very good green bean casserole, and it's not weak. It's not crappy. It's good. It's got multiple flavors. It's got fresh green beans, fresh mushrooms, paprika, like lots of flavors with it.
Did you do the onion straws?
Yes.
Yes.
So there's still the onion
key.
straws, right? You got to have those. So you got to have a little bit more of the pedestrian thing, but I do like the garlic salted green beans. I'm that guy. So I enjoy that, but it's not my favorite side. Favorite side is any version possible of cranberry. So whether it's in the can and the jelly, or it's the kind in the tub or whatever, kind of like what Westbourne and some fancier markets do, where it's almost like not quite a jam, not quite a jelly, but kind of, I I don't even know what the term it is, but
With like the chunks of
yes,
cranberry?
with the chunks, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, chunks isn't exactly the best, most appetizing word in the world.
No, but the other option is like you said, the old school, like the canned, what we would call it, is literally, as we were talking about, like gelatin. It is literally just cranberry gelatin.
And it's got a place in my heart.
It does. Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's also, I love stuffing. I love the canned cranberry and then the stuffing out the box. Because I grew up like that.
Yeah, no, you got to jazz that box stuffing up, though, with plenty of butter and milk and all the heavy good stuff.
Well, now that we've shared sides, let's get into the stories, my friend.
Let's do it.
We're kind of going to go all over the region with stuff. First off is a piece first reported in Crane's Detroit Business. I wanted to bring it up to discuss it because the facts are still kind of scant on it, but the idea of a second story of the Fort Pontchatrain Hotel has come back to life. Now, longtime Detroiters will know that at one point, you know, the idea was to have two towers with the Pontchatrain. And what's so key about the Pontchatrain is that it's right across from Huntington Place. And, you know, there's the Foundation Hotel and all that. But Huntington Place is the convention center. And so having a hotel of real size next to the convention center could be a really big deal. On the other hand, it's going to take a lot of money to make that happen. And the clock is ticking because, as we talked about earlier this week, the NCAA men's basketball Final Four is in 2027. Like, I don't think this is going to get done by the draft in 2024. Maybe. Anything's possible. But by the Final Four in 2027, we're going to need a lot more hotel rooms.
We are. And I think this is a trend we're going to see continue. I mean, you and I have talked about it. You and other people have talked about it on this show. We need more hotel rooms. I mean, no matter who you talk to, whether it's the NFL and the draft, whether it's NCAA and more rooms for the tournament, whether it's just major events downtown, you know, shout out to our Metro Detroit Visitors Convention Bureau. They've done a great job of attracting new events here. And I think the future is very bright. Now, with that, that means there's going to be a lot more people coming downtown. And we've never had the hotel capacity to really support that. There's always people staying in near suburbs, different hotels, even in, you know, like I said, Dearborn. I know for a fact there's tons of hotels in Dearborn that really just serve the Detroit market because it's a 15-minute drive. So we need more downtown hotels. And so I totally support the idea of building more. I think that the Pontchatrain, if it was a major brand, I think it could get done a lot faster. But you're right, Jarrett, probably won't get done until it's just time for the NCAA tournament. Let's talk about this as a trend. We don't have enough hotels. We don't have enough apartments. We have too much office space. So do with that what you will.
This project in the past, when they talked about it, if I remember correctly, it was something in like the 500 a room range that they were thinking, which is a pretty decent chunk, which is apparently the word of the day for the show. Outside of things like the Marriott, the one in the Rensen, we don't really have too many of those giant hotels. We have lots of mid-sized hotels.
Right. We've been addressing our lack of hotel space with a lot of boutique hotels, which is fine. I mean, they're really cool. No doubt about it. I love all of them. But as far as large chains, we have the Westin, we have the Marriott, we got a little Courtyard there. If you count Courtyard Marriott as the one in the Millinder Center, you know, right off of Jefferson there. But outside of that, we don't really have any major chain hotels downtown. So we could really use more of them. If the Pontchatrain, as more of an independent hotel, is going to do 500 plus rooms, that's huge. That would make it the, I think, third largest hotel in downtown, which we need more of. So I'm very supportive of this idea. I think they'll do really well to add a second tower. They've talked about it before. It's right across from Huntington Place. So it certainly will do well for conventions and more events, which are going to be coming there. So I think it's a great idea, Jarrett. And I would say 2024 this is going to get built.
Okay.
Sometime in 2024.
A not so bold prediction.
I don't think it's that bold, but it's going to happen.
Why don't we talk about another new thing, this time out in the suburbs? I think we're going to hop around the region a bit on this one. The first DraftKings Sports and Social is coming to an outbuilding at Somerset Collection in Troy. It is opening December 1st, so like a week from now or something like that. And it's this kind of giant sports venue paired, of course, with the gambling site DraftKings, which is, I mean, all that stuff is what everybody's into now, right? Like sports is centered around betting in a way that I never thought was going to happen, to be honest. There'll be a 32-foot LED media wall for multiple games or events or one giant game or whatever you want to do with it. They're going to be doing all kinds of sports, which of course you'll be able to do something with your sportsbook and casino products, as they say in the press release. Cocktails, of course, food, breakfast. They're looking at about 10,000 square feet, a little over 10,000 square feet near Somerset South. I am interested to see this because we do kind of have a lack of major sportsplexes. I kind of wish it was a little bit closer to where the sports actually played, but I understand why they did it in Troy because there's going to be a huge market for that out there.
They are filling a need because, one, it's incredible the proliferation of kind of the sports betting stuff, and all of this is bad news for Las Vegas and good news for places like Detroit because there always was this concentration of sports books. If you needed to bet on sports, you wanted to go bet on sports, you had to go to Vegas, whatever, maybe Atlantic City. But now it's been kind of democratized where any state or any city that has betting has been starting to allow sports betting. And so Detroit has embraced that, which I appreciate. It's an economic development play for sure. And you have, I think it's the PointsBet bar is the one attached to LCA. And there's like the Barstool bar.
In Greektown.
Yeah, in Greektown. So now we're seeing the DraftKings one. I'll tell you, Jared, just personally, I have DraftKings. I'm not loyal to anything, but that's what I have on my phone. I throw bets around on DraftKings. It's fun. It's great, Jared. It's a new way you throw a few bucks around some games, like keeps you interested in them. So yeah, I use DraftKings, full disclosure, and I appreciate it, but I'm not going to go all the way out there to the DraftKings bar unless there's an incentive. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if you're going to have this proliferation, you're going to have to incentivize why I'm going to go there versus PointsBet versus Barstool.
I think it'll be a big part about like where you live, right? Like if you live in that part of Oakland County, that's where you're going to go before you head all the way down 75. I do want to mention that they are going to have a bunch of games there, like those like automated hoops games, where you shoot the ball and it comes back, skee ball, that kind of stuff. And something else I did not know, and maybe I'm just dumb, I did not realize that lots of people called beer pong Beirut. I didn't know it was called Beirut as a game.
God, that's from either the South. I mean, that's not Michigan or Midwest. If they're calling it Beirut, then let me tell you something. They ain't from Michigan. It's beer pong here.
Now, earlier this week, I got a visual confirmation. I haven't been able to get a direct confirmation, Devon, but is Cornerstone Barrelhouse on Woodward in downtown Detroit no longer for this world? It seems like it. Like I peered in, there were no TVs on the walls. That not only were the chairs up, but like things were packed away. I don't know.
It pains me to say this, but I can tell you that it is. Cornerstone is done. And I really hate to say that because when I lived on Woodward downtown, that was literally, Jared, that was literally my like neighborhood bar. They had great staff, TVs for watching games and stuff. They had great food. The jalapeno cheddar biscuits are stuff of legend. The great whiskey selection. I loved Cornerstone. I really did. I just think that they were a casualty of the pandemic because they were always the type of bar that was open from 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. every single day. And they had to switch their hours up. And so they started opening up at like 5 p.m. to 12, 3 days a week. And we've talked about this, Jared. I can't beat this drum enough. You're going to die that way. You really are. You have to decide if you can make it or if you can't. But if you're only going to open up 3 days a week from 5 to 12, I can tell you're not going to make it. And they did not make it. But it does sound like they're moving out to Ferndale. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they are. It's not the end. Cornerstone will be reincarnated in Ferndale at a location to be disclosed.
Oh, love the intel. Thank you, sir. I'm glad to hear it. I end up in Ferndale quite a bit, so that doesn't break my heart too much,
Yeah, we've talked about Ferndale before on the show. Love it. I hate to see it leave downtown because that means I'll go there less, but I do hope it has success in Ferndale. Having said that, though, Jer, that's a prime location, and I think that the future is bright for a bar that goes into that space. You got one customer at least.
Well, I want to make a bold prediction about that whole area. And I don't know exactly where on Woodward, but I'm going to make a bold prediction. I'm going to start that season. And I don't expect you to make a bold prediction, but I think we'll have a series of bold predictions from now until the end of the year.
I like that.
My bold prediction that I'm going to make is that by the end of this time next year, I believe there will be an Apple store open in downtown Detroit. And bonus points, I'm going to say it'll be on Woodward.
Okay. The broad rumors have been floating about, but we haven't heard anything yet specifically. We know that Uncle Dan wants it.
Yes.
And what Uncle Dan wants, he usually makes happen. I will give him all the credit there. Not a bad prediction, Jer.
I mean, I know it's been talked about for years. I remember people threw out ideas of that corner space that's right across from Lafayette and American Coney Island. I've heard all different things, and I don't really have it like super locked down, but I'm thinking that between Savage and Fenty, Gucci, Lululemon, like all the brands, that whole thing, I think our prediction of Woodward Avenue being all top flight national brands, I think that's the future of Woodward. And I think it is only a matter of time. And I'm going to stake it out within the next year.
Okay. Well, we will see, Jerry. I love the idea of kind of making this a reoccurring theme as we head into the new year. My only thing I'll say is that on a broad scale, piggybacking on the Cornerstone thing, I know that places are closing. There are some places who didn't make it through the pandemic, and we're still seeing those repercussions. But I'm very bullish on downtown Detroit and particularly the hospitality industry. And I think that 2023 is going to see a boom for bars and restaurants and businesses opening up in that kind of greater downtown area. I really think that people see the writing on the wall between the Hudson Site Finishing, between Michigan Central, between the draft and the coming NCAA. Like the next few years, I think we're going to see a huge boom. So that's my very broad prediction, but I will be lending more and more specific predictions in the coming weeks.
Well, I've been on the street talking to sources over the last few weeks, and one thing that has been clear is that foot traffic seems to be up, interest seems to be up, even with some colder days. And I mean, I assume a lot of what you're talking about would happen kind of post-winter doldrums, but I can see what you're saying, although I temper it with a little bit of that fear of I've seen a lot of things come and go, but it's hard because with restaurants, it is such a turnover industry. It just is. And when you see some things close, Lovers Only is no longer for this world. But on the other hand, it is a beautiful showroom and design studio for Throwbacks Home, which, by the way, allow me to tease that next week I have an interview with Kyle Dubé of that place and their whole story to run on the show. So I'm excited about that.
I love Woodward Throwbacks. I actually walked past. I didn't see you, Jer. I must have missed you, but I was walking past the other day, Woodward Throwbacks, and they've got the sign up that they're opening soon. So I was very excited about that as well. And so that's kind of my point is, the thing is now I don't think things are going to stay empty very long. Like literally you're going to see, weeks, maybe a month where a storefront or, a bar or whatever stays empty before it gets scooped up and turned into something else. I think that's going to be the new kind of trend. A lot of turnover, which I know in the industry is tough. And I totally, I feel for the workers of that industry. But at the same time, I think there's not going to be many empty storefronts for very long. Things are going to keep turning and churning.
Well, I know what I see. So Canal, into the night, packed with people, desserts, breads, whatever. I ran into someone else on their way to drinks at Layla, right? Like it's something where you see that it's in that interesting little middle spot where you've got areas of downtown that are really starting to hop up, and then you got other areas that are quiet. And I think if you can keep it going with more residential and more hotels and things like that, you'll be able to have more folks that spend more money there. I am starting to come around to the idea that, I get why there was so much push on new businesses, especially large businesses, for workers downtown because, they pay income taxes, and those income taxes don't cost a lot of services to the city. So bringing in workers to the city helps build the city's coffers without having to pay out very much money. That's a big part of it.
Sure.
But as far as health of the individual blocks and such, I feel like the residences and hotels are going to be a much better long-term strategy.
It is. And I think that's fine. I think that's what we'll embrace is downtown Detroit. It's going to be a tourist mecca, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a foodie scene. It may not be, something that has the consistent traffic all the time, but I think we're going to lean into events. We're going to lean into the culinary scene, and we're going to lean into the nightlife. And I'm very optimistic. I know this is early for a prognostication about 2023, Jared, but let's get the conversation started.
All right. Well, I'd love to hear your prognostications. dailydetroit@gmail.com. I'd love to hear all of your ideas. Not only like what do you think will happen, but what would you like to see happen? And I'm open to not just downtown, but why don't we talk about the rest of the neighborhoods? Why don't we talk about your city that you live in, whether it's in the city of Detroit or whether it's Mount Clemens or Royal Oak. And I've been hearing from a lot of folks wanting us to do some more things out that way. And Devon, for sure we will. but I want to hear from people on the ground there because I think in a lot of ways that's the best way to find out what's actually happening.
You're 100% correct, Jer. And, we're in the streets, Jer. We didn't talk about it, but I mean, for instance, I was in Troy the other day and I was, gallivanting about and stopped at a few places in Troy. So, we're not just downtown Detroit. We do keep an eye on suburban Detroit and the region. So we know what's up.
Well, with that, thank you so much for listening to a week of podcasts of Daily Detroit. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Remember that you are somebody, and I'll see you around town.